Hello and welcome to GG Weekend Watch with Dave Young, Andrew Mount and myself to look ahead to the weekend action. And it very much is the weekend action this time around as well, because on Saturday, from a domestic point of view, we have Newmarket heading the way. But of course, the feature racing of the entire weekend is at Longchamp, where we have the Group 1 Prix de Arc de Triomphe on Sunday. And we're also going to be having a look ahead to that race. And the lads have been in good order. Dave, we have to credit you first and foremost. Last week's winner, not so sleepy, went off at 15-2 in the end, but very well done to you. The jump horse is coming to the fore on the flat, what we always like to see. And Dave, you also had a good time of things with Wob Wob Wob, 9-2 winning the Air Silver Cup. And then I had a couple of placed horses in the Air Gold Cup, where I had Ramazan finishing third at 16-1 and Montesip, who was slashed in his price. Fifth, he finished at 10-1 in the end. So hopefully you got the extra places on offer with your bookies with those two as well. Now we'll crack on with this weekend's action. We begin at Newmarket with the Group 2 Royal Lodge Stakes for 2-year-olds over a mile at 150, where Capulet or Capulet heads the way following his slightly controversial second to his stablemate Diego Vasquez at Leopardstown last time out. But Dave, who are you siding with?
So yeah, this is quite a good looking race, isn't it? Thank you for the introduction. You forgot about the cocktail. We got the forecast up, didn't we?
Of course. More importantly,
the Nymphadora Thunderbears, or the Thunderbear
Mr. Mount with his what was it, Nymphadora Thunderbears?
Yeah, I forgot. I was going to get one and just sort of pour my Diet Coke into it, and I don't know, I was drinking one, but yeah, we'll have to. That could be the theme for each week. Now we'll come up with a different cocktail name based on various tips.
Yes, this is the theme that I never knew I needed, but now will be a complete, especially as Dave and I constantly are on the monster throughout these shows, so we could do with a little bit of extra spice in our life. Well done though, Mr. Mount, but hopefully we'll find another cocktail winner then. Dave, will we find it in this opener at Newmarket for us?
Maybe not. One of it, I know we've got to get on with it, but the fans loved it, right? The fans loved the cocktail. I know there was plenty of people sat on a Saturday that sent me messages just laughing at the fact that the commentator was saying it, and just knew that Andrew would be sat there. We'd all be enjoying ourselves. You've said there's loads of decent actions this weekend, which there is, and I feel really mean because I'm not supposed to be trying to host, and I'm not trying to host. It's the Grade 2 Champion Chase at Gowran Park on Saturday. Whether you guys like it or not, I will have some information elsewhere. Anyway, back to Newmarket, where I'm supposed to start. This does look a very good race for us of you. Loads of progressive 2-year-olds, which is the classic theme that you would get in a Royal Lodge Stakes. And Capulet that you mentioned there. I mean, we'll talk about it as though the form was how it should be, right? He came second in a Group 2, beaten by half a length, beaten by the better horse on the day, apparently. Stable strings, the stable's first string, wasn't it? But if you look at it, they're all on an upward trajectory, I would think, but you'd be hard pressed to be confident to judge what speed they're going to progress at, how much better all horses are, and things like that. There's a few things to take into consideration. Like Capulet's 2 runs have been over 1 mile. There's a few other horses in here where they've run at 7 furlongs. They're stepping up to 1 mile, and while their form looks like it's on an upward curve, you can't guarantee the step up in trips actually going to help those horses. So that's a positive for the favourite as far as I'm concerned. When he started off in August in Dundalk on the all weather, he gave the favourite a good hiding that day. That horse has won twice since in handicaps, now rated 96. The runner-up that day was Huxley, who ran into no other than City of Troy in his race prior, where he was an impressive and well-supported win in the stakes, wasn't he? And the distance for that as well, Huxley was 6 lengths behind City of Troy, and the second in the Superlative Stakes was 6 lengths behind City of Troy. So essentially, he's beaten a superlative second, as far as I'm concerned, that Dundalk run. His form stacked up right. That Diego Velazquez second last time was, like we say, potentially dubious, but even if we leave it as it is, he's come second in a Group 2. It's strong Group 2 form as far as I'm concerned. It's impossible to think that he won't step forward from that run as well. Like I said, they're probably all on an upward trajectory, but I think there's no reason to say that he would be any slower than any of the others. Came out later than some of them too. It's his race to lose as far as I'm concerned, and the 2-1 about him I think is a decent price. I can imagine lots of the O'Brien fanboys getting stuck into it. I'll just touch on a couple of the ones in behind, because obviously you can make a case for a horse just by talking positives about them, but there could be positives for some of the others. Ablan was a bit green last time out, so you'd have to give him a bit of credit for getting that job done, but I talked about the fact that some horses have had their runs at 7 furlongs. That's what he did. he does need to step forward from that form, and there is no guarantee that stepping up in trip is going to bring out that improvement. It might do, but no, you don't know it will. Almus Mac was a ready winner at Haydock, but we get that at Haydock all the time. How many times do you get exaggerated distances, winners, and then they, I don't know, ends up being like a bit of a track specialist? I think this is a much better race as well, and I don't trust the distance there. And then Ghostwriter is a bit like Ablan, stepping up to 1 mile for the first time, and also way up in class. Like everything else in the field, that they are entitled to be improving. So long-winded way of saying that Capulet will win the Royal Lodge Stakes, and 2-1 is a stonking price.
2-1, the market leader Capulet, or Capulet, depending on which commentator is calling him on the day. But the Aidan O'Brien horse then heading the way for Dave. Andrew.
I have to take issue with Dave about his pronunciation. It's Capulet. It's Romeo and Juliet. It's the Montagues and the Capulets. And when I was at school, it was Capulet. I know that's a long time ago. You look at dictionary.com, Capulet pronunciation. So my pronunciation is normally terrible, but I'm very, very confident that it's Capulet. So,
but the culture has come to the fore.
Yeah, let's go the Shakespeare route, and
it's like my Prospero, my Prospero all over again. Then for Shakespeare, yeah, we know, exactly. We know Shakespeare.
Yeah, my Hamish.
Definitely not Shakespeare for Darryl.
Yeah, this is a funny one, isn't it? Hard to assess this one, because you sort of think. I mean, I laid Diego Vasquez in running, thinking, my goodness, this horse is going nowhere. And he kept finding, didn't he? Was Capulet given a bit of an easy, like we suspect Adelaide River was behind Auguste Rodin, another one that's hard to pronounce in the Irish Derby. Was Capulet flattered by being up with the pace at Leopardstown? I mean, Leopardstown on Irish Champions Day, my goodness, if you're trying to come from off the pace, you did not have a prayer. And I was quite impressed by the winner picking up from where he came from that day. And I was thinking I'll probably want to take on Capulet next time out, thinking he might have been flattered. Stall 9 of 9 could be handy. I know the stalls were in the centre, but if you watch the first race on Thursday, which we just had prior to this podcast, stalls 16, 17 and 18, the 3 highest drawn runners finished first, second and fourth, one of those at a massive price. And the Aidan O'Brien runner in that race was third from stall 1, which was a big eye catcher. But we could be seeing them come towards the stand side, so stall 9 could be handy. But it's a tricky old one, isn't it? The one I was particularly interested in, I'm going to put up as a sporting selection, is at Vimero. German bred, trained by Jane Chapel-Hyam, who was a huge eye catcher on his recent debut at Doncaster. Went up 11-1 on that day, probably quite a short price for a Jane Chapel-Hyam newcomer. This one owned by Peter Harris, those familiar green, yellow, red colours with the white cap. Coming out of stall 1, slowly away, in rear, pushed along, ran on final half furlong eye catcher. Now, because Doncaster, we know, massive front runners, well, generally a sort of front runners bias that meeting, and I think 3 of the first 4 home were up with the pace, albeit the winner wasn't. And of course, Bellum Justin, 4th in that race, has just won at Newmarket. So stall 2 might not be ideal, but the stalls are in the centre rather than the stand side. So I'll go each way on at Vimero in the hope that he can improve on that debut effort and get in the frame.
25-1 at Vimero for a big price play then for Andrew. Don't tell us that we don't teach you stuff on this show other than just about horses. Shakespeare has come to the fore more often than I really thought was ever going to be the case in the last few months. But there we go, another reference there as we move to Chester for a handicap for 4-year-olds and over 2 mile, 2.5 furlongs at 205. This one very open, where we have just the 9 runners though, but still the market is reflective of a very open contest. So Andrew, definition of trappy, who wins it?
Your Kindness. Now I'm going to tell you something that you knew anyway. I'm an idiot, and probably about 2 years ago, I wrote up Your Kindness in my column in the Racing Post Weekender, because Your Kindness, the first foal of Your Kidding, who won 6 times for Mark Johnson, and didn't peak until the summer of her 4-year-old career, and then achieved a mark of, I think, 100 or thereabouts as a 5-year-old. So it really took time to come to hand, needed time and distance, and I said Your Kindness is going to go the same way. And you know, when she won at Hamilton August last year as a 3-year-old. I thought, this is it, she's going to take off now. And then she proceeded to sort of get beaten off in at short odds on the next sort of half a dozen starts or so. And I kind of given up on her by the time she won at Pontefract in June of this year. And then, you know, since then she's taken off. She's now won 4 of her last 5 starts. I did go down the road thinking, oh, maybe she needs a stiff track. She's 3 from 3 at Ponty, and then she's won at York. She's won at Musselburgh, you know, albeit in small fields the last twice. But you look at it, just, you know, she's a daughter of Nathaniel, obviously needs a trip, you know, and as she's been stepped up in distance, she's improved. As she's got older, she's improved. And it's like she's, you know, sort of shadowing her dam and, you know, running there. She's running off a mark of 83 here. I think she could be a 95 plus horse, maybe even 100 plus. And stall 3 is going to be handy. She's going to relish the extra yardage here. I think she's going to run a big race. So Your Kindness for me.
Your Kindness to emulate her dam. I mean, it's all very clever, isn't it, when you look at the owner's name of both the dam and of her as well, Paul Robert York. So obviously with the York theme then transcending 8-1, then Your Kindness for Andrew. Dave.
Yeah, this is a race that I don't really like, to be honest with you. It's the sort of one that I'd probably go make a cup of tea or go get a beer from the fridge instead of watching on TV. I know that sounds bad to say, but it's like
you can have 101 a beer, 66 a cup of tea.
The thing with it is, like, it should be like again, from like a jumpsy fan type stuff. It's like a handicap for bumpers with the prep, isn't it? But it's such a far distance that a lot of horses that are bred on the flat aren't bred to want to go this sort of extreme distance. So you end up with a lot of tosh really in there. I'm not going to have a bet in it. There's a couple of horses I can quickly just talk about, and I will try and be quick. Pashkan's one that, like, it's crazy, right? This horse has peaked at 116, now rated 105, but last won in 2021 off a mark of 86 and had a £5 claimer on. 2 other wins were both in handicaps as well, for 75, the same £5 claimer, and then off of 57. It's crazy. He's trying to like make a little bit of a case from his last run of the Ebor at York when he was back in a handicap for the first time since 2021 again, when he was 5th in the Melrose. Saw him slowly away back to like 2021 when he was 5th in the Melrose. But jockey Ben Robertson just said he was never really in the races, but he stayed on that day. It's impossible to try and be positive on this horse, so I can't back him. I'm just trying to make some sort of case. Like, you've got a horse that's 116 rated running against horses that have been rated like 60 and 70 early in the year. If you had a genuine 105 rated horse in this race, it should absolutely bolt up, but I just can't have any confidence in it. And then Bailly's the favourite. We had a horse at Ascot, I can't remember who it was, I think it was the Stuart Edmonds horse, that just had won 6 on the bounce or something, just progressed up through the numbers. We see it with these sort of stamina races that, especially, you get this with just like certain types of horses, but her being a filly, you get it when they get into a bit of form and they're in a bit of stride where you just, no matter what mark they run off, they're going to go and win. Those wins climb has been from like 57 to 75, which is like curiously the same as when Pashkan had his climb from 57 to 75 for a bit. I wouldn't want to be laying her, but I don't want to have a bet in the race. So just do what Andrew said.
Do what Andrew says. Okay, yeah, exactly. We're going to have to
just going back to Tashkan, because obviously was he second to Trushan on Champions Day in the long distance race on soft ground. He's the kind of horse that if you put, he'll get beaten in this, and then he'll pop up in that and run second or third again. So he's very, very difficult to win with, but he will outrun his odds in group company at some point, I suspect.
That's it. You always want, it's the old adage, isn't it? You want that price about Tashkan to outrun it in a group race. Like, say, when he finished second at 50-1, then behind Trushan in the Champion Long Distance Cup there a couple of years ago. But that's really sort of where we like to side with him. But we do have Group 1 action up next in the form of the Cheveley Park Stakes for the 2-year-old fillies over 6 furlongs at 2.25 back at Newmarket. Relief Rally bid for yet another win. She's had such a stellar season so far. But Dave, can she go in again here?
Maybe. I think she's one of 3 that I've whittled it down to that could win it, but I do think she's probably a bit short in the market. I can see her price drifting, and I can see some money coming for a couple of them. One of those that I think will come in is Jasna's Secret, the French Raider. Definitely that last one in Deauville with the RPR of 102. You could use that to easily say that she's like a 105 filly over here. Obviously, it is one over here, not over in France. So there's like a bit of an unknown on that one. But she's second favourite at the moment. I think she's about 11-2 top price. Potentially will be backed in, I suspect. But I don't think I could make enough of a case that actually suggests why you should put your hard-earned money on her. One that I do like, and it's a bit of a price, and I'm scared of this one because I'm trying to get quite excited about it because of the price, but I think it's been nibbled already. It was 14-1 top price when I was writing up earlier. I think it's a general 10-1 shot. We can check that and then quote that correctly to the people. By the time it goes out, it definitely wouldn't have been nibbled, right? So I've said there's question marks about some of the horses in the race, like Jasna Caesar and Jasna Secret, and you can see why Relief Rally is the favourite, especially after posting like 3 RPRs, last 3 starts, triple figures, 2 of those winning, and including last time at 6 furlong where the step up and trip looked like it helped. But the form is a little bit patchy, and there is a line through Symbology, who was the same distance behind that day, when was also behind Sacred Angel at Ascot in the Princess Margaret. Now, Sacred Angel was seen next time out against the Colts in France, a race we're going to talk about a little bit later on, because both Van Dijk and River Tiber were in there. And she was only 5 lengths off the winner, 2.5 lengths off the third River Tiber, getting her girls' allowance. But the winner that day is rated 117, and she was running against the boys. Can be hard for the girls the first time out. I just think that her mark of 105, you can definitely trust that. I touched on Jasmine Secret. You'd say she is about 105. Relief Rally's rated 106. Like I said, this one was 14 that I looked at before, but it's still probably double figures, about 10-1 shot. I think you can trust that she'll run out to her mark of 105. You could argue that a form prior to that run in France as well is just as good, if not better. And that form came on good to firm ground. The run in France was very soft over there, but when you watch it, France is very soft. It's probably soft here, maybe good to soft. So I think she's going to be better on this type of ground. Also, her side, Dark Angel, won the Middle Park Stake, which is the boys' version of this race for the Colts. So that's another positive to note. So I think she will win. Like I said, the winner comes from one of those 3, I think. Relief Rally, Jasna Secret, or Sacred Angel. I think Jasna Secret will be supported at 5-1. I think Relief Rally will drift up by the time this gets published. But Sacred Angel, like I say, was a top price 14-1, maybe about 10s or 11s now. Is the most reliable horse in the race, has potentially the best form in the book as far as I'm concerned. And I can't see how she's outside the frame. I think Sacred Angel will probably win this.
She has been nibbled in as well, as you say, 14-1. Then I can see 11-1 top price. So hopefully that won't diminish too much then by the time that this goes live. Sacred Angel for Dave. Andrew.
Yeah, interesting, particularly on account of the draw. So stalls were in the middle, 13 runners. Sacred Angel drawn 1. Given that they might all want to come stand side, we'll obviously have some more information after 2 days racing at Newmarket. I'll be slightly worried at this stage about stall 1. Might turn out to be a big advantage if they haven't raced on that side of the track and they go across to the far rail, but we'll see. Relief Rally, I took her on at the York Doncaster, thinking that York's step up 6 might not suit, but she impressed me that day, and she's a superstar, isn't she? She's certainly wouldn't begrudge her another win, or certainly wouldn't be surprised if she went in again. You can make a very good case for it. 2-1 certainly won't put you off. But the one I'm going to go for is Porta Fortuna for Donica O'Brien, who sort of won her first 3 starts, and then bumped into Bucanero Fuerte at the Curragh. That was in the Group 1 Phoenix Stakes. Now, beating 4 lengths, I was really impressed by that, because there was a strong draw bias at the Curragh that day. Now, it wasn't a huge field, 7 runners, but they pretty much split into 3 groups: far side, centre, stand side in the very early stages, and then they sort of merged later on. But the high draw that day was a big disadvantage. If you go through all the sprint races that day, you look at the horses who were drawn high, who were beaten. They've often run or won or run well since. Even Mowgli yesterday at Balloostown was another one of those. So that 4-length defeat was actually worthy of an upgrade. Now they've stepped her up to 7 furlongs at the Curragh next time. They've held her up in sort of 4th or 5th place in the early stages, and you stop that race after 2 furlongs. Basically, they've just fannied about in the early stages, just dawdled around. And the ones who were up with the pace were the ones who pretty much fought out the finish, apart from the runner-up Vespertilio, who will be very interesting next time we see her. She's in the Irish 1000 Guineas next year. But although you look at the running in-running comment for the Racing Post, midfield outpaced, kept on towards far side, forced dead heat 3rd. You think, well, it sounds on paper as though she needs to step up in trip, not back down to 6. But because of the steady early pace, I think that's a false narrative. And I think coming back to 6 in what should be a strongly run race will suit her. So I'll go for Porta Fortuna, coming out of stall 6. So it certainly has options in terms of the draw.
17-2, Porter, Fortuna, Donica, O'Brien, and Asheen Murphy in the place. Now more handicap action up next, up at Haydock this time. It's the 0 to 105 handicap for 3-year-olds and over 5 furlongs at 240. And we have Proverb even as the current favourite on a 7-day turnaround. But Andrew, who did you fancy in this one?
None of the above, pretty much. This is a bit tricky. One thing to know is that historically, it's been a big advantage to be drawn high in this race. You go through it. I mean, even when Mondamage won 2 years ago, the last time he won on turf, he was like 6 of 10, so it doesn't look like a high draw, but it was sort of certainly in the top half of the field. Very rare for, I think you have to go back to Harry Hurricane to find a low drawn horse who won this. That was in 2016. So that could be something to note. I mean, Silky Wilkie's going to take them along, you would think, from stall 6 and Blast Off. And Mondamage is in here again in the bid to end that long losing run. I couldn't recommend him. He's had so many chances of late. And the one I was looking at was Wolverhampton coming out of stall 8 for the Millman Yard. And I heard 2 wins have come in small fields. 7 round and 6 round. She's also got a sort of a head second in a field of 7 to her name. And decent effort at Ascot last time behind Call Me Ginger, finishing 3rd of 13 at 16 to 1. And what I mean, if the low draw is not a disadvantage, Arecibo coming out of stall 2. Arecibo is one of these frustrating sorts who you think should have won a lot more than he actually has. But it's all about the size of the field. And the last time he had a single figure lineup, he's finished 3rd, beaten a length at 10 to 1 at Sandown, running off a mark of 99. He runs off 88 today. The time before that, the last time he had a single figure lineup was in April at Pontefract, second to Live in the Dream. Adam West's runner, we know what that one's done since. So he generally runs his race when he's got a small field. I mean, he finished second by a short head to Live in the Dream as well before that at Lingfield. So he needs plenty of room in his races. He's going to get it, being sort of on the outside, and doesn't win as often as he should, but maybe he can get in the frame at a price. So 11 to 1 or thereabouts, I think. I'll go each way Arecibo, but I do fear Wolverhampton.
Do fear Wolverhampton, therefore, but 11 to 1 about Arecibo for Andrew. Dave?
I mean, I'd like us to print and get laminated little cards where I can just say pass, because this is a race. It's meh. I wouldn't be interested in this in the slightest. Even like did President Andrew talk about it there? As soon as you mentioned Silky Wilkie, and I noticed that Brandon Wilkie's riding him. First time he's on Little Apprentice, it makes you wonder if it's all in the aligned in the stars. So if you're doing your ITV7, it's the type of thing in it, like a name a number. Silky Wilkie would be a token selection, not a bet. Don't put it up in the selection list, but yeah, no interest. I'll take a free pass and save the couple of minutes so I can talk about Gowran Park later.
Perfect. That's ideal then. Yeah, right. If ever you see a jockey's name that matches up with the horse, 100% back it then. From
do you remember the horse named George Baker, trained by George Baker, who was ridden by George Baker and won at Leicester, I think it was.
Yeah.
Is that the only time that's happened? You'll be the man to know this, Andrew. Is that the only time?
I would expect so. Yeah.
I would also be chancing that to be the case. But yeah, I'm still waiting for Tom Collins, the horse in America, for Tom Collins, the tipster, then to have some sort of way of. You never seem to tip him up though. It's always really disappointing. But yeah, we do like that angle. Anyway, Dave, thank you for flagging that up as we move back to Newmarket for the Group 1 Middle Park Stakes. This time for the 2-year-old colts over 6 furlongs at 3 o'clock. River Tiber takes on Van Dijk here. So Dave, this looks a great matchup, but who did you come down on the side of, or not even the top 2? Anything else?
Well, I've been sort of biased by it. Like, this is it looks a seriously good race. So regardless of people if having bets or all sorts in there, this will be a good one to watch, I think. I've been sort of brought in by that Deauville form with River Tiber and Van Dijk, where as much as I try and make a case or look for anything else, I can't get out of my head that the winner comes from one of those two. They're fairly closely matched in the market, but when you go back and watch the Deauville run, Ryan Moore just decided, they both sat at the back. Ryan Moore, and it was Atzini that was riding Van Dijk that day. I think it's James Dorr that's on this time. But it was a great ride from Atzini. They went a bit quick in that race. I think both of those being top jockeys knew that was happening, but it looked quite clear that Ryan Moore just wanted to follow Van Dijk and knew that was going to be where they were going to get the gaps. Both of them had to weave a little bit to get in there, but it was actually Van Dijk who got a little bit stopped whereas River Tiber did get a clear run. Ultimately, they finished the race pretty much the same distance as they were apart the whole way in between, but Van Dijk did look fairly comfortable on top. So hard for me to look at it and imagine how that form gets reversed unless tactically Ryan Moore decides to put the horse in front of Van Dijk. Like, I think the only way that that horse finishes in front of him is if he starts in front of him. But I don't know whether Ryan Moore's got the option to do that, because River Tiber was pretty hot at Ascot. So sometimes you get these horses a little bit quirky where you don't get the choice. You can't just send them on. You just have to ride them in a patient position to get the best out of them. So all around about way, I think Van Dijk will beat River Tiber. But the only difference is that Deauville ground, I touched on it before, was classed as very soft. It was probably more like soft if you watch it, maybe like about a good to soft type stuff. This is good to firm at Newmarket. I think both of the horses will handle the track. I just don't think that the ground being that quick is going to actually inconvenience Van Dijk, even though it's a little bit of an unknown on him. Both of these horses have already won on soft, and he battered River Tiber on soft as far as I'm concerned in France. So in the rematch, I'm excited to see it. I could see it potentially going both ways. Tactically, Ryan Moore would have to outride James Dorr, which could happen, but I will be going for Van Dijk.
Van Dijk to uphold the form with River Tiber from last time out for Dave. Andrew, how did you see this race going?
I'm in agreement with Dave. When I first looked at this, I thought, I'm a bit worried about the ground, the possibility it would be on the far side for Van Dijk. But you read those comments from the Crisfords earlier in the season, and they've sort of been adamant that he will improve for better ground, won't have an issue with it at all. And I sort of missed the fact that he was, I didn't back him in France last time out, but I thought I was impressed by the performance, even though the margin of victory was narrow. I think he's a potential superstar. You could argue he already is. But yeah, I'm very interested in Van Dijk here. Again, draw-wise, we just mentioned that only 8 runners, but again, just watching the second race we've had at Newmarket today, the winners made all on the stand side rail, big price, and anything that's down the middle, even 3 or 4 horse widths off the rail, hasn't had a prayer. So that could change. I mean, they watered on Wednesday night, I think, at Newmarket. They put 3 mil on. So given Mr. Prosser's love of the watering can, it's not impossible that their ground on the stand side is opened up. They water it. It becomes slower, and the virgin ground on the centre, the far side, might be the place to be. But just do keep an eye on that if you're punting on Saturday in the earlier races. But yeah, I'm with Van Dijk. Really impressed by him so far, and I hope he can maintain his unbeaten record.
9-4 about Van Dijk, the same price about River Tiber, but both Andrew and Dave with Van Dijk to uphold that form. Now, proper handicap action up next in the form of the Cambridgeshire Heritage Handicap for 3-year-olds and over 9 furlongs at 340, one of the most competitive races of the entire season. But Andrew, I mean, your idea of heaven, really, this race. So who wins it this time round?
I love this race, and if there's a firm paying 7 places, I'll back the 8. If they're paying 8 places, I'll back the 9th. That seems to be what happens in the Cambridgeshire every year. But yeah, I love this race, an absolute belter. I mean, again, we talk about the draw. We've had some really strong bias races in this race, sort of fairly recently. Massive after timing here. I napped Majestic Dawn at 40 to 1 when he won this 3 years ago. He was stalled 25, beat 27, beat 24. Last year Majestic drawn high 26. Again, it paid to be drawn high. Dual Identity ran a cracker, winning the race on the far side from stall 6, and of course returned to form last time out when tipped by our colleague Matty, and is lining up again, although stall 16, bit of a nothing draw really, down the middle. Now, I've tipped one at a big price in Racing and Football Outlook earlier this week, which is Dutch Decoy for Charlie Johnson. Not my favourite trainer, but this one's about 50 to 1, I think. He ran in the race last year. He ran really well. He finished 7th at 100 to 1. Now, he raced quite close to the early pace that day, which was not the thing to do. It paid to be ridden patiently. Since then, they've tended to give him a more patient ride, which is quite unusual for a Charlie Johnson horse, of course. Now, he ran 3rd in the Golden Mile at Goodwood, albeit when fairly close to the pace, which was very important that day. And he really caught the eye when 6th to Ropey Guest at York. That was in the Clipper Handicap, when again you had to be up with the pace. And you look at the first 3 home that day. Prominent led and raced in second place. So if you weren't on the pace, you didn't have a prayer. He's actually done second best of those to come from off the pace that day. Dutch Decoy behind Sonny Liston. He was fourth, best of the closers. Next time out, he's gone for Donny. Bumped into another pace bias race. This was the one won by Liberty Lane. And again, Sonny Liston's run really well against the bias, finishing second. And so, you know, hopefully, I mean, 9 furlongs probably stretches his stamina. He's probably more of a miler. But, you know, 7th last year at 100 to 1. Running off a similar mark, more patient tactics since, probably improved since as well, despite the fact that he's probably improved more than the official handicapper reckons, £2 higher than last year. I think he's going to run a big race if Store falls no disadvantage. So, you know, given hopefully there's a bit of rain around or overwatering on churned up ground, I'll take a chance at 50s. And the other one I'm going to put up at a stupid price is Phalag for Jim Goldie. Now, Jim Goldie's had 19 runners in this race. He won it with Karaka Jack at 14 to 1. Nanton ran in this 4 times, finished 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and 6th. The second at 66 to 1. Now, I think Phalag is going to run in this, and he's also going to run in the Cambridgeshire, which is something Nanton did, which might surprise you because he sort of falls in between in terms of trip. You know, last time out, he was staying on over a mile 6 at Wolverhampton. He's got a mile and a half form. He's 150 to 1. He's going to be outpaced, but I'm sure the instructions are just sit at the back, hope they go too fast, and just try and pick up the pieces and get in the first half dozen. So you know, if you can get 150 to 1, 100 to 1 thereabouts, fifth of the odds, you know, 6, 7, maybe even 8 places, you're going to get between 20 and 30 to 1 that he does just that. You could get beaten 15 lengths and you're still finishing 6th and getting paid out. Now, the last time this horse ran at Newmarket on the Rolling Mile, he was rated 107. He was in listed company, you know, albeit he was trained by William Haggis and it was 3 years ago. But he ran 6th. He was 2 lengths behind Trushan, you know, in listed company. He's now running off a mark of 86. He's finished placed in 5 of his 6 runs for this yard. The time he didn't, it was still a decent effort. It was an extended 10 furlongs at York and Pride of America's race, the John Smith Cup Heritage Handicap. You know, he's not been totally disgraced, finished 12th of 18, beaten 11 lengths. So yeah, Phalag, you know, if they go stupid up front, this horse who needs a mile and a half, I admit, or even further, could just plod on into a distant extra place. So yeah, Dutch Decoy and Phalag, sort of sporting bets at silly prices.
150 to 1 about Phalag, 50 to 1 about Dutch Decoy. So Andrew is properly swinging them for the fences here. But as he said, I didn't want to misquote by getting it wrong, but I had it in my head. It was Majestic Dawn who won for you as your nap at a big price there a few years ago. And so if that happens again, well, goodness me, Dave, be that.
Well, it's good, isn't it? And the thing is, you don't have to make much of a case when they're those sort of prices, but there's more of a case than you would expect for the price it is. That's a good shout, Andrew. I've whittled it down to 2, and in my usual fashion, I'm going to go round the house a little bit until I tell you who those 2 are. There's one which is not 100% sure to run, but I think he's going to run. But regardless, it's going to be a bet, and then depending on where it runs, depends on what type of bet it's going to be. But we'll get into that in a second. It's quite exciting stuff, right? So please hold on. Exchange markets are up.
Hang on, Dave. I'm just going to put the kettle on.
I'm not content.
Exchange markets are usually up about midday on Thursday for the Saturday's racing, right? And a big handicap like this, 35 runners in there. It's sometimes telling who wants to get into some stuff early. Most people on the lay side of it, everything's just 1,000. There are literally pennies about, but you can get a little bit in there. There was 5 horses when the market first came up that people wanted to back. So Greek Order was available about 9 to 2. People wanted to back it just over 5. So there was some interest in there. Dual Identity was available just over 11. People wanted to back it 16, but there was some money behind it. Saga, the Queen's Horse, or the King's Horse, with 16. People wanted to back it about 20. Crack Shot was one as well, about 20. People wanted to back it about 30. And Majestic, last year's winner, was 20, and people wanted to back about 55. So there was only 5 really that I'd already looked at a lot of the horses that whittled down, and luckily the 2 that I fancied were in those ones that were fancied. So double little barrel in there. The one that I'm going to kick off with, right, and this is the one that could be going anywhere, we think it's probably going to come here, is Crack Shot, right? Snuck in at number 33 of max field of 35. I mean, 35 runners, like the Grand National, isn't it? George Adobe taking off £3, riding for Ed Walker. Last time out winner, Yeah, sorry. He was a last time out winner on his second handicap start, coming 5th of 15 on soft ground, which he was withdrawn on next time out. So line through that 5th of 15 on handicap debut, the ground is what ruined the horse. It's just that, like he didn't like it slow. Class 3 handicap win last time out, but it was another 92 RPR which he posted on his run prior to the run on the soft. So before he ran on the soft ground, where he disappointed in the handicap, he did the same racing post rating. So like he's a good, capable horse as far as I'm concerned. He is engaged on Friday over the same trip with Tom Markham booked up. Another Class 3 handicap. That's the 5:55, I think, on Friday. 2-1 favourite for that race, right? So it's very clear as day that in handicap terms, over this trip, this horse has got a race off his mark. Like it's potentially a favourite chance. The fact that he's snuck in at the bottom of this thing makes you think that they just declared him for Friday because they know that there's a race in him, but they weren't 100% sure he'd get into this race. The fact that he has now got him makes me think that he'll skip Friday's engagement. In doing that, that would make him contractually priced in the market. So he's already been nibbled in. He's about 20-1 at the moment. Handicap on Friday's 30.5k to the winner. 90k if he wins, or 90k more if he wins this, and around about the same for coming fourth. So I think he's probably likely to come here. Do think that the connections know that he's got a win on the mark. That's why they're desperate to get him in a handicap right about now. So I'm very interested in him if he does come here. 20-1, like I said at the time of recording. If he doesn't and they just decide to run on Friday, I'm going to completely unload 2-1. Tom Marquand on it's like, I just think it's a bet this weekend, whichever way it comes out. Greek Order was impressive last time out. So that was another one that I mentioned on the Betfair stuff. It's got a £10 rise to contend with. Dual Identity was equally impressive last time out. £4 higher than last year's third in the race, but probably is a better horse. So I think those two have got about the same sort of chance, even though they're not the same sort of price. Saga for the King, I'll get it right this time. Ryan Moore, but it's also owned by the actual King as well. He was second, head second in the Howden at the start of the season, weren't he? In first-time cheap pieces under Frankie Dettori. They've reverted back to the blinkers now. They've reverted back to Ryan Moore riding him. Bound to run his race, but not trustworthy. And then last year's winner Majestic was the other one that was on a bit of my shortlist and was up there on the exchange stuff. So he also ran in the Howden, sent off 92, off 93, £4 lower now, and he's only £3 higher when taking the race last year. Interestingly for him, though, he's actually posted some pretty good RPRs in the context of this year and last year. Comes here a bit more of a fresher horse, though, having not been seen since Chepstow. And I think that's because we've had some rain, some slower ground out there. The quicker ground is going to be the best ground that he'll have run on this season. As I say, those year-on-year figures look like he's probably a better horse than he was last year. So there's a good chance that he's at least £3 better than he was last year, even though he's off a £3 higher mark. So there's definite interest in him. So the two that I'll be back in are Majestic, and I will also be back in Crackshot, whether it runs Friday or whether it runs on Saturday. Part of me wants to just run on Friday so I can steam in, but probably going to run here, so I'll play the pair.
Played the bet. 20-1 he is currently, but has been nibbled in, as has Majestic. 25-1 about him, but do just see whether or not Crackshot runs on the Friday or the Saturday then. But Dave's backing him for either of those events, whichever one he ends up going for. Now, I have to be pretty unoriginal here, to be honest with you, because I did come down on the side of Greek Order, who will hopefully be able to bring up the hat trick here. A very lightly raced colt, just the 5 starts to his name, which is something I like for this race. I like lightly raced, unexposed horses in the Cambridgeshire, and this lad is very unexposed in the handicap sphere with just 2 runs in that sphere. And I also like the fact that he had a break before last time out, so basically coming here off of the back of one sort of run in this campaign. But that was a really impressive one at Newbury last time out, and it was obviously his first attempt at 10 furlongs, but he drew right away in such impressive style, and that was without a hind shoe as well. And the handicapper has not missed him, a £10 rise. But I just thought, no matter how harsh the handicapper is going to be here, he's still not going to be able to catch up with this horse's ability yet. And I don't think he has. And he also has a good hydro to boot. So glad that Andrew flagged that up earlier on, which is what I want in this race. And I just think that he's going to take an awful lot of stopping, provided, of course, he gets luck in the run, which is evidently needed in a 35 runner handicap of this nature. But at a bigger price, though, because I feel a bit unoriginal siding with the favourite in a race of this nature, Tawada at 18-1 in here, who just missed out on his own hat trick last time out. Only 7th of 19 at York in a Heritage Handicap, but that was under a penalty. and he raced slightly away from the main action to be beaten at just 4 lengths, which I don't think was any disgrace whatsoever. He's down £1, remains open to further improvement, and another lightly raced 3-year-old in here. So there are plenty of selections.
To Rod on my long list as well. He was a place behind Dutch Decoy in that Clipper Logistics race, and yeah, he was third best of those to come from off the pace when you had to be on the front end. So yeah, the form ties in with Dutch Decoy. There's your forecast. Yeah, I don't think it's a good name for a cocktail, a Tawada Dutch Decoy, but.
Tawada, no, I wouldn't be ordering that. That wouldn't be standing out to me on the cocktail menu whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, 18-1, but Dutch Decoy is 50-1, and very little to separate them at York on that recent outing. So at least we've got the intertwining form lines anyway, as we now move on to take a look at the Group 1 Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. Comes up on Sunday at Longchamp for the 3-year-olds and over. No geldings, of course. Over a mile 4 at 3:05. And of course, we've had the all-important draw as well, but it's still Ace Impact who heads the way. Hookham has been pushed out now, who was leading the Brits previously, probably as a count of his draw now out in 14. But Dave, who wins the 2023 Arc?
I mean, it looks a pretty good race, doesn't it? Ace Impact definitely's got a favourite chance. So one's towards the head of the market. It's the one that I like. There was an interesting graphic that was sent out about Aidan O'Brien when he runs his 3-year-olds in here. I know Continuous has been supplemented, but he's had some good horses, just doesn't win. But I'm probably of the thought process that as much as he's a master, this is one hell of a race. And if you look at the actual list that he's had, it might take him 15 runners to get a winner. So maybe he's due one. But one I'm not struggling to see the price, but one I'm excited about seeing the price is 40-1 Pope, and it's Ernesto, who was sent off 11-1 in this race last year when the ground was, again, French, very soft. This horse's best form is on good to soft or quicker ground. If you look at what he did last year, last summer, he ran at Longchamp in another grade 1 over 1 mile 4, so no worries about the distance. Admittedly, only won a neck, but he won a Group 1 at this track and over the trip. On better ground. It was good to soft that day. Peaks maybe around about that time in the summer, but he ran in the Irish Champion Stakes last year behind Luxembourg, so proved that he actually has got a little bit of class element. But then when he came into the Prix de l'Arc, just was never really in the races. But as I say, was sent off at 11-1 Pope. Went over and ran in the Japan Cup after that, managed to finish 7th of 18, was only 4 and a bit lengths behind. So again, backed up the class a little bit. But interestingly, last year had so many runs. This year's had a 260-ish day break, 259 days it was to be correct. Then he's gone in a Group 1 at Deauville, running against Innsbruck, decent race, but that was in August, so not that long ago. Then at Leopardstown, 9th September, ran back in the Irish Champion Stakes, where Frankie decided to steady him, pull him back, get him stuck behind some horses on the inside, and never really try to do anything. So it just looked like it was a day at the races for the horse. Now, the break is a bit of a concern because maybe the horse has had some sort of issue, but let's just pretend it's all by design. And they've decided that because it's a warm time over in France at the moment, that the good ground is what's going to suit this horse. And they thought, you know what? We actually might have a chance of doing all right in an Arc. So I think the fact that you can get each way terms, it's a fifth of the odds most places, but you can get pretty much the same price to place that this horse was to win. I know you lose your win part of it, but Ernesto for me at 40-1 just looks way, way too big a price. So I'll take a swing at him.
40-1 Ernesto to come good then on this in this race. So fair play, a big swing in a race that is a pretty wide open Arc, to be fair. Now, not necessarily a vintage renewal as we've seen in recent years, so might be a good ploy to take a big swing at one at a price. Andrew, where were you looking?
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed it's not going to be running a quagmire, because that's normally when the value pops up in the race. Just find, as most horses, just running it because they've been aimed at it all season, even though the ground's gone against them. I mean, Ace Impact, solid, isn't he? Won with plenty in hand in that Group 3 last time out. A prep race for this. Nice draw in stall 8. I preferred him to Continuous, so I thought this might come a little bit too soon on very different ground after his St Ledger win. Stepping back in trip is a concern as well. At one stage, I think, just backing horses to do what they've done before. We should do the Hookham Westover forecast, because they were separated by a head in an epic King George last time. Who's to say they can't finish 1-2 again on what could be similar ground? But the one I'm leaning towards is Bay Bridge. Now, I was initially surprised that they aim. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but when we talked about him running in that race at Kempton last time, we're all saying, Bay Bridge wins. How come he's like 11-10 against, or even money? And we should have just said, like, if you're going to have one bet, just make sure it's on, it's on Bay Bridge, and should have been a Naposaurus Rex, but he won that very easily. Now that took his run over 10 furlongs or further in September, October to 4 wins from 4 starts. Now the last time he had these conditions on turf, he won the Champion Stakes last year at Ascot, and the fact that they're going for the Arc rather than the Champion Stakes again, which looks a hell of a lot more winnable than this race, it is, perhaps a hint in itself. He's trained by a certain Sir Michael Stout, who generally knows what he's doing, certainly more so than I do. So yeah, I thought the price is, he's one of my favourite sires, New Bay. I thought, I'll go Bay Bridge. I think he's the only horse, if he won and I wasn't on, I'd be gutted about. So I'll just have a price of a lottery ticket on Bay Bridge.
14 to 1. It's quite a price, really, because he's been a little bit of a talking horse then, of a horse that's overpriced, but yet that price hasn't really contracted. I'm not entirely sure why, but yeah, a good price then about Bay Bridge. Now, as you know, before we started recording, I was sick about the draw that we've obviously had just before we started recording then on Thursday, because I've been all along about Hookham. I just adore this horse. He's so talented, and I was sort of making the case beforehand about defying the 6-year-old stats then in here, and then the draw goes and absolutely shafts us basically with us Hookham fans in here, because you go through and people say, well, no 6-year-old has ever won the Arc. And I thought, okay, yeah, right, I'm going to go through at least the last 10 years then, see how many have tried and exactly how they then fared. Now, the last horse that was older than 5 to win the Arc was Matrico. He won it as a 7-year-old in 1932.
I remember it well. I was just a boy.
Along with your Shakespeare learning in school, it was all tied into one.
Really?
But in the last 10 years, so 9 6-year-olds have run in the race. 4th is the best that they've done. That was Siljan's Saga at 200 to 1. But the key race then for the 6-year-olds is, of course, the 2020 renewal. Enable couldn't win it. She finished 6th. Stradivarius, the same age, was 7th, and Deirdre at the same age was 8th. So that's a real damning year for 6-year-olds. But other than that, I thought it was pretty difficult to draw definite conclusions of horses of that age in the race in recent renewals. And to be fair, for me, Hookham is slightly different, because Enable, yes, that was only her 19th start, but she had already run in 3 Arcs, winning 2 of them, heavily campaigned in those runs. Stradivarius, that was his 25th start. Deirdre, her 32nd. This will be Hookham's 18th. Yes, he's had enough runs, but he's only just hitting his peak now, it seems. And he hasn't had as tough a career as a 6-year-old as those others, as the others had at that stage of their lives. King George form is the best in the race for me, and just confirmed him as the horse to be in this year's Arc, as he is proven. Now, I'm relying on the 2 winners from stall 14, Frankie Dettori and Golden Horn in 2015, and Dalakani in 2003. Basically, I'm just holding out hope, because I'd be sick if he still goes and wins and I abandon him at this stage. So at least I'm getting a bigger price for him, as he has been pushed out. God help me with Hookham. Right, anything from anywhere else? Andrew, back to you, please, because you know where Dave's going to go.
Yeah, just a couple very quickly. At Newmarket in the 420, I think it's Newmarket 425. 425 somewhere, might be Haydock. Empire State of Mind, John Quinn horse, who has got the visor on for the first time. That's a positive statistical angle with Quinn horses, and I think he also ran in one of these races in which Dutch Decoy was inconvenienced by coming from off the pace as well. So last run was better than it looked on account of the pace bias, and the new headgear could help him. And the Jersey Lily Nursery at Newmarket, the 450 on Saturday, a race I like. Key to Kotai, who ran in the Zulu Chief Nursery at York, and of course the 10 horses from that race who've run since, 6 of them won at the next time of asking, often having been well beaten in that race. So Kita Kotai was 5th that day. Good run against the bias. I think this one, she's going to run a really good race.
Okay, then there's a few. Then for Andrew, Dave, we know where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and be as quick as I can with it, but there's a lot going on. Right, Gowran Friday has listed mares hurdle. We've got Magical Zoe in there, now stepping out of novice company. Anna Benin is in there. She would win, but the ground's so soft, we're not going to see the best from her. Say Goodbye, Rob Kerr horse that's not been seen for a long time. Last seen her defences, looks like a decent prospect, making a bit of a comeback. It's not a betting race, but 100% needs to watch that race. Some seriously nice horses that are in there. Same goes on the bumper on Friday. Facile Vega's sister's running. Aurora Vega, daughter of Quavega, full sisters of Facile Vega, literally been beating trees, but been absolutely hammering them. This will be her third bumper run. To run in the champion bumper, you're only allowed to, I think, have 4 runs, or it be your 4th run. So she's likely to go herding after. She's genuinely Cheltenham Festival standard, and we're only in September. So you've got to watch that on Friday. Get excited about it. Saturday, we've got Envoy Aland back in the Grade 2 champion chase. Easy Game won it last year, beating Kenboy. They're going against each other, and on the reverted ratings, those two are like fairly close, to be fair. Got Gentleman's Game, he's coming back to action, right? Only had 1 start over fences, December 2022, trounced Iron Maximus. He went and won an Irish Grand National. Clearly had his issues, but very excited and stepping into proper open company. So that is probably for me the best race of the weekend. And I know we've got the Arc, but the Grade 2 Championship gets stuck in. But there is a bet, right? I've done all this Irish waffling. I'm going to give you the cherry to go on top of those waffles. It's a beginner's chase on Saturday. I've talked about the class, all this stuff. We're going to get stuck into one, right? We're going to get stuck into Gavin Cromwell, Keith Donohue's Let's Be Clear About It. Last seen went 4th at Aintree in the Mersey Novices over 2 mile 4. Before that was last seen 4th in the Albert Bartlett. So last season he was a novice hurdler, but that was a break after missing a whole season. So he is an 8-year-old, but he's a baby 8-year-old as far as I'm concerned. 6 runs they got into him last season as well. You often see these horses have a setback, might be like lesser campaigned, and they're looking keen now to get him straight out into chases this early in the season. Heavy ground at Gowran Park, that's going to help this horse. The only horse that possibly get anywhere near him is Largy Debut. He'll also like the soft ground. And as much as I like novice chasers to make mistakes because they can improve from it, Largy Debut seems to get worse. He looks like a horse that he's basically saying, I don't jump over fences. Why do you keep making me do this? I'm going to keep proving I don't want a fence. But I'm hoping because of his ability, that's going to hold a bit of a price. Anything odds against, I'm going to get stuck into. Let's be clear about it. I'm hoping for a bit of 6-4. He will win. Even his bumper forms deep, and he was second to Segard and Gilchrist. So let's be clear about it. In the beginner's chase, which I think is the last race on Saturday, just lump it. Get on.
And bet responsibly.
Yeah.
I should add that.
And the caveat that we always say, we always recommend, but yeah, lots of jump horses then to look forward to as Dave has flagged up. Right, nap. Dave, back to you, please. Your nap of the weekend then. I wonder where we're going.
Let's be clear about we know he's good, but I don't know what sort of price it's going to go off. I'm hoping we'll get odds against, but if it ends up being a 2 on poke, I'm not shoving that up as a nap. So I'm going to go for Capulet in the first. Kick us off with a winner.
Good pronunciation.
Hey. And good pronunciation to boot. Andrew, your nap.
Pronunciation. I never know that one either. I'm going to go Dutch Decoy in the Cambridgeshire, the 340 at Newmarket on Saturday.
Oh, okay. I'm going to take you on then in the Cambridgeshire because I'm going to side with Greek Order. If I'm tipping up a favourite in a race such as this Cambridgeshire, I may as well go all in then as a nap. Greek Order in the 340 at Newmarket. Right, that is everything from us on this week's show. A lot that we have managed to get through. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. A big thanks to Dave and to Andrew for all of their hard work as per usual. And best of luck with your bets this weekend.